Today's topic is going to be about preparing in terms of research, something that a lot of our clients and a lot of you I know are underestimating the amount of work that you need to do in order to make a proper impression in case you get questioned, and this information you will need to be using in your cover letter as well, so that the cover letter doesn't get in the way of your interview. Okay, so let me get back to that PowerPoint. All right, good. So this is a June masterclass, and that's what we are going to go through. So first of all, a little introduction where we're going to tell you a little bit about us, about what we do, why we're here, how we're here to help you. And today I'll introduce you to the team as well, which many of you haven't seen yet, just so you understand who's here to help you. After that, we will dive straight into the content of why research is critically important in your success. Then we'll talk about how much of it you should be doing. Then we'll talk about the 4-pillar strategy. So before we dive into the actual strategy, I will give you the opportunity. I will do a little exercise with you. Okay, so I'll ask you a question and you'll have a few slides to think about a potential answer, and you'll be able to give me your answer on the chat. Okay, and then we will revise some of these answers. So think right now already of your airline of choice and how much you know about this airline for which you have a selection coming soon, right? It will all be about that. Great. And then we'll talk about the 4-pillar strategy. So this masterclass is free today, but we're going to give you a lot of content here that, of course, is detailed in our full course. And if you're already on the course today, continue watching, because this will be a high-level presentation that may also help you put the building blocks of what you're learning at the moment together. It's always nice sometimes to have a summary of things in order to put your ideas together. Right, so we'll talk about the 4-pillar strategy. And then we'll go about what to tell a major airline, because the point of the research is not just to answer the questions that an airline might ask you, such as how many airplanes have we got, how many employees have we got, how many pilots, how many cabin crew. By the way, if you don't have the answer to that now, you really should. It's also about having done enough research to understand what's going on inside this airline, so that you could tell them why you've chosen them, why their recent achievements, and in fact maybe their historical achievements as well, speak to you, why you feel aligned with them. Okay, so this is why we're going to talk about what to tell to a major airline. And after that, we're going to talk about what to tell a low-cost airline. You're not going to say the same thing to a major airline than to a low-cost airline. And you can love both for different reasons, and we're going to cover that. Good. Then we're going to talk next steps about our offerings, how we can help you. We'll tell you where to find it in case you want to go further. This won't be a long part of the presentation. The idea here is to give you as much content as possible in a short format, a short digestible format, so you can forward your preparation. And then finally, there'll be a little surprise. If you've attended the last webinar, it's hardly a surprise, okay? There'll be the opportunity to book a session with one of us in case you have any questions, and that's what you will find in the surprise. So it's hardly a surprise, really. Good. So as part of an introduction here, I'd like to tell you a little bit more here about myself, about who I am. So my name is Guillaume Debauchez. I'm the CEO of Airline Selection Program, and I was a major airline recruiter. Most of you will know of my story. I was a British Airways co-pilot, flew the 320 and the 777 with them. And then I moved on to Emirates, where I did 4.5 years as a co-pilot, 4.5 years as a captain, and I was a recruiter with them, which to me was a very big point in my career, was the time when I entered the recruitment department. And that's why I'm here today, to bring you this sort of unique experience of having been through 2 major airlines that were similar in a way, but also very different in the way that they operated, and this recruitment experience, which is so defining in how you will approach the beginning of your career. Because if you understand recruitment, you will have a much easier entry into your career, but also afterwards, you'll be able to succeed interview after interview and to get to your full potential. Okay, so that's about me. Just before, I'll make sure that you're all able to hear me. Okay, yes, apparently it's all fine. Good, because I would hate to be here talking for 10 minutes and nobody can hear me. Very good. So that was about me. And then I'll tell you about what we've built and why we've done it, really. So yeah, before I get into that, the idea behind ASP, really, and the mission is to help you get a first job fast and then the career that you truly deserve. Okay, getting this first job fast is super important, whether you're an ab initio or coming out of flight school. And of course, if you're experienced, you're then on the next phase, which is to get the career you truly deserve. But our goal here is to really help you get that first job fast so that the anxiety stops. Am I going to succeed? Is all that I've learned and all that I've invested in going to finally pay off? This is a very, very difficult time that you are starting, whether you're an ab initio or more experienced pilot, so that this stops and you can get on with your career, get to the critical 500 hours that will secure that career for you. And after that, move on to another airline if that is your choice, so that you can fulfill your full potential in a new airline or grow inside the airline you're in, because you are going to have a lot of interviews inside the airline that's going to be your final destination. Okay, so that's our mission, really. And the reason this mission is because I've suffered at the beginning of my career. It was very tough for me to get that first job, and I finally got a really good first little airline that unfortunately didn't last very long. But after that, very quickly after that, I got into a major airline and I was secure. So I know how difficult it is if you are in this situation. So, oops, back to the presentation. That's it. The system that we have built, it works mostly because of my experience and dedication. Okay, I have had a career that spanned over 17 years. Like I said, having worked for 2 major airlines, both on short haul and long haul, a first officer and a captain, and the experience of recruitment. So this translated at the end of my career in the desire to transmit what had been given to me into a system that would really work. And I knew from the very start that this time that you're in is difficult and that there's a lack of structure. Yeah, there are some companies that would prepare for this. In my time, it was as well, but it was not structured. It was not easy, like it is in an ATO, where you have modules, flights that are documented, that you know what to expect. There was no real method, and our system works because of my experience and because of the method we've put in place. That was a winner from the start. In fact, from the very first version of Advanced Interview Course, it was a winner. It's also because of the team that we have and the systems we've put in place with the website that we've got and the apps that we've got and everything that is there to support you. Okay, so I wanted to say that just so you know why I'm here, why you see me a lot. I'm very active, and why our system works is that it was well thought through from the beginning, and it comes from this experience. What type of pilots do we help? We will typically help a pilot who's got a selection coming. That I often ask you this. If you've had some messages with me, I often ask you this. From a scale of 1 to 10, how important is this selection for you? We help you if the answer is 10. It's as simple as that. We have put together a great platform, a great system, and I think, in all humility, a great training that is staged with a pedagogical logic to it, where you learn and you start to learn more, and after a few modules, we reuse what you've learned in the first module. It works very well, but it only works if you work. And someone who's telling me that it's 10 important is going to work. We are going to help that person the most. Entering on our training is not going to work just by having purchased the training. It will work if you apply yourself. Okay, and very often we see candidates, lots of ab initios at the moment, because there are a lot of ab initio programs that succeed, and they tell us, and when I tell them, what did you do? I watched it 4 times. I came to all the sessions that I could. And that's how people succeed. It's as simple as that. Okay. Don't worry, we're going to get to the content in a second. The transformation you can expect is quite big. And here I want to mention something from the get-go. A lot of people who come to prepare for airline selections are worried that they don't want to come out as unnatural, as over-prepared. And the idea is not to fake what you're saying, not to invent things that never existed. You have to be true to yourself. But any training is a transformation. When you learn something new, you add it to what you had before, and the fact that you know it transforms the way you think. You become more knowledgeable, and if you start to apply it, you become also more mature. Your judgment applies itself differently. So that's normal. What we're training, what we're teaching should be taught at ATO. And it's not taught at ATO. Why? Because the regulator has not made a demand on it. And that's why ATOs don't have to teach it. And of course, they are doing what they are mandated for, which is to get you a license. It should be trained at ATO level. It's obvious that you need to understand the airline pilot role if you want to become an airline pilot. And when you do, you're quite different than if you didn't. That's the transformation you can expect, to really understand what the airline pilot role is all about, so that when you're in front of a recruiter, you can be articulate about it. And the idea here is not a quick fix, a quick sentence here. That doesn't work. You need to really understand it. And when you do, you'll use your own words, and you'll improve along the whole scale of competencies throughout the training, including communication, so that you can deliver a powerful session during your interview. Okay. So that's the transformation you can expect, again, if you apply yourself. Good. And for the first time, I'm going to tell you who is with me in the team. I'm trying to position my face without breaking everything here. So here we go. Because this that we've built, it works not just because of me. It works because of this wonderful people that we've got in the team. And many of you just see us from the chat. You see a few of us and you meet the specialists. But I'd like today, I'm very proud of them. We're having a significant milestone at the moment as we're preparing for Advanced Interview Course version 3 to come out in a few weeks. I'd like to say how proud I am of them. And we have a team of aviation experts. So we have Hugo, who's been here from the start, is a pilot recruitment specialist. Rebecca, who's an expert consultant who's flown the 380 and the 787. And she's got a great website, the Aviation Place, and she's fantastic. She's developed our operational procedures course. And we've got a psychologist as well, an onboard psychologist, Dana, who some of you will have had during your 16PF debrief, and who can also help you if you've lost confidence after a selection. If you need to talk about something, she's here for you. And this was important for us because what we do is all about pilot well-being. And then we have, of course, a whole team of technicians, which you don't see here. There wasn't enough space on the sheet to show that, but you've got Stephanie, who you know, she's our director client support. She's here to help with your interactions. There's Angelique, who has just joined, who you will get to know very soon as well, if you're on the chat with us often. And then we have Julian, who has joined the team a month and a half ago, who's assisting me so that I can be in front of you more often. So again, I'd like to say thanks to all of you if you're watching this webinar. I couldn't be more grateful. So that's why it's all working, because we've got a great team. Now, let's get into the content that you've been waiting for. Succeed at airline selection. So this is, in fact, tonight we're going to give you an expansion of Module 2 of Advanced Interview Course. Okay. Why is research important? Yeah, and before this, yes, there's something I wanted to mention. I'm going to remove my face again. There are 3 categories of candidates, and if you've seen this presentation before, this is the only thing that you've seen in the previous presentation that I'm going to say again. you have the candidates that will almost always pass because they have the right reflexes and their personality they're naturally good communicators, let's put it this way, okay? So they are hard workers, they communicate well, and they sort of understand the exercise of recruitment without anyone having to explain it to them. Then you have the other 50%, the next 50% who will pass on a good day, meaning that these clients, these prospects, these sorry, not these pilots, they are just as good as the other 25%. They are exactly the same quality of pilot. However, they're not very comfortable in an interview room. They will tend to not understand that they are here to sell themselves to an extent. They will talk about some of their shortcomings in a negative way. They won't put a positive twist on things. Their communication may be impaired in an interview room, and they will pass on a good day. They will pass, like I often say, if they walk on water on that day. If the recruiter asks them the right question, if everything goes well, if it's exactly the way they've prepared, they will pass. These 75% of pilots will all have the same quality of contribution almost to any airline. And our goal is to make sure that all of them, or a large majority of them, will pass. The thing is, you see, you don't know if you're in the green or if you're in the orange. And you will know after your first selection. The thing is, it's quite costly to wait until your first selection to find out that actually it didn't work out, to then start to work and work towards being part of those 25% consistently, okay? And then of course you have the other 25%, which are sadly candidates that tend to perhaps struggle a little bit more in general, maybe a bit shy, may struggle to communicate in general, and those will, it will take quite a lot of things for them to finally succeed. Many of them still will. They may have to instruct for a while until they build themselves to a different level of comfort, okay? So having said that, now let's get back to the topic of the day. So why research is important. So first of all, research is an evidence of your motivation. Let's talk about the cover letter a little bit. So if I see a cover letter from a candidate and it shows that they've studied my airline and that they show that they have because they are telling me about recent achievement statistics, Skytrax reports, airplane orders, environmental commitments, and they tell me that they feel connected with my mission, something that they've picked in one of the latest reports that we've read about, or they mention a recent advert or marketing campaign, and they say that they've been moved by it, for instance. Compare that to another candidate who is using a generic letter where essentially you could just change the name of the airline and replace it with another. How motivated do I feel that this candidate is? Okay, so being researched, it shows on the letter, and of course it will translate into how you are perceived in the interview. A common question could be, how did you prepare for this interview? And one of the first things that you could say there is to explain how you've gathered information about this airline and perhaps how you've been doing it for years. If you're a real aviation enthusiast, you've been gathering, even subconsciously, information about most of the airlines that have your interest for quite a while. So you could say that, but you could detail what you've done recently because now you know that you are going to soon be in a selection. This shows motivation. If a candidate tells you that they have studied your annual report, that they've been doing so for 2 years, that they have subscribed to your Instagram and your LinkedIn and they've been following all the reports, that they've been speaking to pilots inside your airline, asking them questions about their flights, that they've become a shareholder of your airline. People sometimes criticize me for saying that. Honestly, buying a share at Air France cost, I don't remember, but I think it's less than 10 euros at the moment. I think it's even less than that. It's not very expensive. You know, the advantage of buying a share in an airline is huge because you can say it and you can also go to the shareholders meeting. You're a shareholder now and you actually can vote. and you get access to a lot of really useful information. Okay, so once you are able to show this, that you've done this, your motivation is no longer questioned. And I'll mention this in the frame of Air France, who I know very well. A lot of candidates in the past and still today, when they get debriefed, the reason I mention Air France now is because the debriefings exist, we're told, we didn't quite perceive your motivation. That's, man, I mean, they would say that to professionals. Professionals in Air France language means people who have a frozen ATPL, a CPL, IR, and an MCC. People who've spent 100,000 euros or thereabouts are being told that they are not motivated. And as a recruiter, I understand why they say that, because if after all of that, you've not gone the extra mile to research this airline, your motivation doesn't show. And the fact that you've invested some money isn't enough. You need to go the extra mile. And bad news, yes, you need to do it for every single airline that you apply for, if you want to have a chance. Again, how important is this selection? If the answer is 10, you need to work. Okay. But once you do, results are there. Once you do, you're completely different in the interview room. And that's what I want for you. Okay. Let's get back to our little presentation. Okay. Research is important because, as well, you want to come across as an employee, not just a pilot. I know when I was very young and I imagined the airline pilot life, I imagined myself, I imagined an airport, and I imagined myself walking in a uniform and having a bunch of crew, and we would get onto the flight deck, and there'll be this wonderful flight deck with lots of buttons, and I imagined, taxiing and taking off and seeing the clouds, and then some palm trees at the other end. That's really how I imagined it. Essentially, I imagine just the pilot part. But you are going to join an airline that evolves in a competitive environment, and they want to be convinced that you are going to be an employee who understands the constraints of their company. If you have done enough research, you will be convincing in that regard, and they will feel very comfortable. Understand that those who are in front of you, recruiters, live in this airline. They've been living in this airline. They tend to be quite senior. Sometimes you can have first officers who've been there for 4 or 5 years. Often it will be captains. In my case, I joined recruitment very soon after I joined, but I was already an experienced pilot. Okay, so I'd already been through 7 years of one company's culture. We get sent emails every week, several times. We get sent newsletters. We get the airline brochure specific to employees that you can grab everywhere at the HQ. We get fed corporate information day in, day out. We expect that you understand that and that you are able to reproduce some of this that was available to the public, and also some of it that was not available to the public because you've spoken to people on the inside. Okay. Don't worry, if you don't have a friend on the inside, it doesn't really matter, but you've gone as far as you could. Pilots of a certain level of experience are corporate employees, really. And they are at executive level, right? So you're expected to understand that. And if you're 19 right now watching this video, you're probably thinking, oh my God, how am I going to know and understand all this? Don't worry, there are solutions for that. The idea is not to get you an MBA, but just what you need to know. I often say this, I've been saying this a lot lately. The problem that a lot of candidates have today is very different to what we had. In our days, we had too little information. Having access to information when the internet had barely been here was difficult. Today, there's too much. In order to succeed, you can't waste your time and effort watching every single YouTube video that you find. You need one system that works and stick with that. Of course, you can also study a little bit on the side, but information overload is a problem when you have a limited amount of time to study, okay? And why is research important as well? Because airlines will feel that there is a much lower risk of attrition, meaning that people will stay. if they have studied your airline and can convincingly prove that they have chosen this airline, then the risk of them leaving is low. There are two things a recruiter doesn't want. The first thing is that this candidate causes a problem once on the line, because then the recruitment file may be opened again and the recruiter will be criticized. And the second thing is that this person's coming here for the wrong reason, coming here for the money only, or coming here just to start their career. If they feel that you may leave soon, then you're not as good an investment as they could make in someone they feel will stay. Okay, so if you've done a lot of research, you're giving them evidence that you have chosen this airline and could be happy in this airline for a long time. Okay, good. So how much really should you know? Of course, you should know a few key figures. You wouldn't go to any interview anywhere if you didn't know, at least to an airline, the number of airplanes, the number of airplane orders, the number of pilots, the number of cabin crew. You should know that, okay? The number of cabin crew depending on the airline, but if you have 4,000 pilots, you'll have something like 15,000 cabin crew. You need to know if the airline has a long haul element, there'll be a ratio that will be more cabin crew. If it's short haul, the ratio will be somewhere around 2 to 3. If it's short haul and long haul, it will be somewhere around 3 to 5. So you just need to know this figure, okay? You also need to know the turnover of this company. If you don't know what it is, it's the amount of money that they make every year. And you will need to know their profit. So these are two figures that are not easy to digest, but you need to know them. And you will need to know the ratio between the two. I will explain this in a second. From a pure aviation side, you need to know airplanes, airplane distribution. So if you have an airline that's got short haul and long haul, you need to know how many short haul planes, how many long haul planes. If there's different types, you need to know each of these types, and you need to be correct on that. You need to know the orders, like I said. You need to know how many pilots have been coming, how many cabin crew. You could know how many destinations. You have to know the network. You need to know, at Wizz Air, for instance, they ask what's the furthest north, furthest east, furthest west, furthest south. You could know that as well. And then you need to know some key financial ratios after that. So in the course, we teach 3 key financial ratios. It's the net margin. That's the difference between how much net profit they make and how much turnover they make. Okay, so it's a ratio. A really, really good airline a major airline, a really, really good major airline will make sometimes around 9 to 10%. A really, really good low-cost airline will make sometimes close to 20% on a really, really good year. Okay, you need to understand these ratios so you can compare airlines together. There's another ratio that we teach as well around debt, to understand how much debt an airline has. And finally, that's it. The turnover, the net profit, and the net debt. And from these, you derive some ratios. It's not that they are going to necessarily ask you for this. It's not part of the interview to ask you financial ratios. However, if you enter a Ryanair interview, one of the reasons to love Ryanair is their financial performance. You may want to mention that. And if you mention a few figures like this, it will be very impressive. Likewise, if an airline like British Airways, well, in the case of British Airways, the financial performance is excellent. Why do you want to join British Airways? If you tell them, again, just like Ryanair, about their financial performance, they will be impressed. And if you go to Air France, if they ask you which challenge they're facing at the moment, you could tell them that although their financial performance is positive, their CEO mentions in numerous parts of the report that it is key for them to be able to sustain that, and that the profitability, whilst good, needs to improve. Okay, and then you can explain all that. Having this as part of your pilot culture and knowing this for your target airline is super important. Okay, and then you need to understand the airline strategy. You need to understand the strategy. You need to know its history. Okay, if you're applying for a major airline that's been here for 93, 94 years, you need to know the big stages. In the case of Air France, it's pretty easy. In the case of Lufthansa as well. For BA, it's more tricky because they had like BOAC, BEA, there was Caledonian, there were lots of things happened with British Airways. At the end of the day, it's not that difficult either. You need to know that, and you need to know what the strategy has been for the last, say, 20 years and what it's been recently if there's been a change. The Air France strategy has somewhat pivoted since 2018 and the new management. BA did that early 2000. You need to know also the name of the emblematic CEOs. Okay, at Air France, Jean-Cyril Spinetta, you need to know. You need to know Christian Blanc, Jean-Cyril Spinetta, and you need to know of Ben Smith, of course, who is the present one. At British Airways, you have to know of Willie Walsh. Okay. So you see, there's quite a lot to know, but at the end of the day, compared to what you're learning at the ATPL, it's very little. You just need to learn it. The strategy is important because inside this, you will also understand their mission. Wizz Air's mission, for instance, is liberating lives through affordable travel. BA's mission is connecting Britain to the world and the world to Britain, you see. So when they ask you, if they ask you why you'd want to join, you need to know this mission because you need to tell them in your own words why you're connected to their mission. I had a candidate the other day when we did a rehearsal, and he mentioned that the reason he was attracted to joining, I think it was Emirates or Qatar, was because of the financial package. You don't want to do that. You don't want to say that. You want to say that you're connected to the mission. People stay in any place for 3 reasons: the financial package, the alignment with the mission, and the working conditions and flexibility and whether they feel integrated and valued. Okay. But when you're at the interview, you need to talk to the mission because, in fact, it's the mission. If you understand why you're doing what you're doing, it's the mission that's going to keep you connected to this company the longest. It's also a very nice topic to discuss at the interview. Okay. Good. You see, there's quite a lot to know. Okay, so now let's do a little exercise. If you're ready. Okay, I'll just make sure that you guys are still here. Okay. So, think of your airline of choice and let me know which challenges is your airline of choice facing at the moment. Okay, just take time to think, maybe grab a piece of paper if you want. And I'm going to want you to tell me, you can type it now, I'll pick up the chat in a second, and we'll revisit that at the end of the presentation, okay, to see if you've connected the dots relating to that, okay? And if, well, connected the dots, basically, if you have an answer which is structured. So try and put in the chat an answer that is structured. I don't need something like this, I won't have time to read it, but maybe a few bullet points that I can understand, okay? Good. So how are you going to answer this one? Now we're going to talk about the strategy of the 4 pillars. When you go to the interview, you can't have in your memory an immense amount of data. You need to have signposts that you can get back to in case for some reason things don't come to memory easily. Okay. So when it comes to answering about challenges, you're going to, or talking about an airline strategy, you're going to use the 4 pillars. 4 pillars are financials. Okay, talk about finance. If you open an annual report, the first thing the CEO talks about is always finance. First of all, it's because it's a document that's directed to shareholders, and shareholders want to see return on their investment. That's why. And because it's also very difficult to make money with an airline. It's always been difficult. Ryanair and EasyJet are the really first ones who managed to turn around the short-haul profitability equation. Before that, and still today, major airlines were deficitary on short-haul. Okay, they were making money on the long haul, and they needed the short haul to feed the long haul. So it's very difficult, and major airlines, I told you a good major airline will make 10% profit on a good year, which British Airways came very close to doing that this year. a lot of the times they make more like 3 or 4%. It's very tight. It's not great, okay? So these airlines, they're always at risk because if there's a downturn, very quickly they can get into the negative. Or if they make wrong decisions and they have consequences, they could get into the negative. So financials are very important. And money is not a dirty word. If an airline tells you, what do you think our challenges are at the moment? You can say, well, first of all, there is a financial challenge. You can say that at the Air France, oh, really, financial challenge, but we posted a profit. Says, yes, but reading your report, the first thing I saw was that reducing debt was very important to the CEO and getting better profitability was important. So I assume that there's both a cost reduction and an increase in profitability that will go hand in hand. And as an employee, this is very important to understand because we're all part of this strategy, you see. Second pillar, product. So the product is the airplanes themselves, the cabins, the routes, and any other ancillary services given by the company. But if you focus just on the airplanes, the routes, and the cabins, and all the onboard service, then you've covered the product. So which challenge are we facing at the moment? Essentially, you could say that, well, it's been difficult to expand because the airplanes have been grounded, or when they are telling you why do you want to join, you could, in the case of Ryanair, you would say that the financials are great. In the case of Air France, you'd go straight to the product because the product is, there are new airplanes, new routes, new cabins, and you can talk at length about that, okay? And then the third pillar is the employee. You will see that in all annual reports, after having talked about the financials and the product, they will talk about the employee. The airline wants to say thanks to their employees. Some of them don't do it that much. I didn't see much of that in the Ryanair annual report this year, for instance. But major airlines are really hot on that at the moment, talking about inclusion, diversity, a great place to work. There's a really a desire to seduce the employee and to keep the employee from going elsewhere. Be aware that pilots are tend to be very attached to their airline. They don't tend to leave. They will leave a few times in a career. Other employees leave every 3 years. Okay, and working in an airplane environment, being a baggage handler, working at the counter, it's not exactly the dream. So ever since COVID as well, people have taken a look at their lives and thought, okay, what do I really want to do? Do I really want to do this? Do I really want to work shifts like that and work at night 1/3 of the time? So remember when I told you that people stay inside a company if they, because of the package, because of the mission, and also because of the conditions. So it's connecting the employee to the mission and the conditions before the package that's being done here. Okay, so when you read the report, you can see what they're talking about, and you can say that you feel connected with their mission on diversity, on inclusion, on helping handicapped people, on whatever it is that you read. Okay, on having people from different cultures, etc., etc. And finally, the fourth pillar is the environment. All these pillars are connected. To create a good product, you need financials. To pay the employees, you need financials. To invest in the environment, in sustainable aviation fuel, you need financials. Okay, but if you don't invest in the product, or if your employee is not happy, for instance, if the employees are not happy, it will show in the cabin. They'll smile less, they'll be less welcoming to the clients. Clients won't come, financials will drop. Okay, so all of this is connected. But this is an easy way for you to be able to structure your thoughts at the interview, whether it is you're explaining why you want to join or which challenges they have. All right, good. I hope that you enjoy this. I wanted to show you now how to go and study an annual report before we go. What time is it? 43. Okay, before we go and discuss what to tell a major and a low-cost airline. And then after that, we'll go into answering our little questions. So this is the British Airways annual report. Okay, so this is how we go about it. Just be very aware of what you're seeing here. Okay, so the message is very, very clear very early on the diversity of their company. And as we go down, you see here it continues, diversity of culture as well. And they tell you a lot of things. Connecting our purpose, that's of the whole IAG group, connecting people, businesses, and countries. Very simple, very beautiful. British Airways is connecting Britain to the world and the world to Britain. At IAG, our purpose is to connect people, businesses, and countries using aviation as a force for good. I mean, this is rich, okay? You need to know this. And these reports, especially when they're good like the BA one, are peppered with valuable information. They're talking about the transformation program, for instance. And here they start to give you some figures. Some of them are impossible to memorize or digest. So that's why we have a method to gather just a few. I'm not going to go into detail here because we're going to spend the whole evening otherwise. But a really cool technique is you can use Control F or Command F, depending if you're on a Mac or on a PC. And you can type the word challenge, difficult, problem, and you will have all the challenges, or what's difficult and what's a problem listed for you. Okay. So this would warrant a half-hour video just to explain this, but I think you can see what you're getting. You're getting figures, you're getting the mission, you're getting some keywords as well. And at the end of this report, there will be a bunch of figures, and there's also a financial report that usually precedes the annual report, and that will give you all the information that we need. So here there's a bunch of preliminary stuff, and then quickly we're going to get into the figures, I believe, or I might have to speed up the process. That's it. Okay. So here you see that revenue. You need to know which words are synonyms. Okay, this we explain in the course. So this is like the turnover. So you can see that the turnover improved quite a lot, 28 billion euros, and it's in euros, and a 2.7 billion net profit. Okay, that's the net profit. Profit after tax means net. That's the sort of detail you will learn in the course. So that's an 8.5% margin after 9% the other year. The year before, it's huge. Okay, Air France, to give you a comparable, did 1.5, I think. So this is why it's so important that you understand this. All right, then you'll go and look for the debt further down, and I think let's look for the debt. I don't know where I've put the debt. Net debt, that's it. And you translate the debt into how many years it takes to repay the debt. And that's just a movement. Where is it? I'm not going to find it easily. It's all in the sheet that we've produced in the course. But essentially, you'll see that British Airways will repay its debt fairly quickly. If it used all of its net profit to repay the debt, it would go fairly quickly. There it is. Okay, 7.5 billion compared to 9.2 years before. It means they are indebting themselves quite quickly. 2.75 years. Okay, so that's excellent performance. Oh, it doesn't show well on the screen, I'm afraid. Sorry about that. Oh, it's because I've done the search. That's why. Now it's better. Okay. Now let's take a look at Wizz Air. So this one says 25. It's because Wizz Air publishes the report for the financial year finishing 31st of March. British Airways, it's 31st of December. That's why the other one's called, the most recent one for BA is the 24, and for Wizz Air is the 25. So very good. So here you get messages. Wizz Air is the fastest growing ultra low cost carrier. They give you lots of information right from the get-go. They call their employees dedicated aviation professionals. Okay. And they're presenting their reports in a different way. But essentially, you can see that their net income compared to their revenue, it's 7%. First of all, you can see the difference in size, okay? So it's 6 times smaller than BA, for instance, right? And the net margin in 25 is 4% compared to 7% the year before. As you know, there's been the engine issue, okay? And you will have also a further financial report here in which you can find that they have a huge debt. Look, they have almost the same amount of debt as British Airways. You see why all of these ratios are important? You can uncover so much information. I mean, I would say this if I was at the interview. I would say, yeah, it's very important to reduce the debt. And the CEO, he mentioned this throughout, actually, that the financial position of the company is something that is concerning, but their strategy is healthy. They know why they've got this. It's the COVID, then the issues they have had with the GTF engine. So it's been a lot, but they're comfortable that they will manage to overcome this. Now, if we look at the Ryanair report, it's very different in look and feel. And okay, I didn't plan to take a look at it, but just so you can see, they still perform at 11% margin, although they couldn't get all the aircraft that they wanted. And we're talking about very high margins, right? And BA is roughly a little bit less than a half. Ryanair is a little bit less than half than BA. Okay. You see how much information we can gather from these? I hope that you enjoy this. And now we'll go back into my presentation. Okay, so what are we going to tell to a major airline? We're going to tell a major airline. So the question is, why do you want to join our airline? So if we're talking about Lufthansa, British Airways, Air France, the idea is that you tell them about your childhood dream. If you belong to one of these countries and it's your flagship carrier, you need to talk about these dreams. And that's why you'll see in a few weeks, and that will be, I think we've set the date for the 15th of July, we'll have a big, and this one will be paid, effective communication masterclass. In this masterclass, I'll tell you how to really convey your emotions to someone. And you need to do this to your recruiter. They need to understand this emotion of why you really want to join this airline. Okay, you're not going to cry. You're not going to be overjoyous. You need to be using your voice, your face, your body language to show how important this airline is. And it needs to show as well in how you write. And when you do this, you're being convincing. So you'll tell a major airline that you want to join them because of what they represent to society in general and to you. And then after that, you can use the 4 pillars. But essentially, it's that history. So I've broken it down to some more items that are that have structure. So let's get into it. So you'll talk about the collective history and the childhood dream that's inside of you. So it represents something to the society in general and to you in particular. Their mission of connecting the world is not that much of a mission for a low-cost airline that's limited to a continent, okay? Connecting, remember, British Airways, connecting Britain to the world and the world to Britain, or IAG, connecting people, businesses and countries, okay? And then because major airlines give you the full pilot experience. They are complex operations, allowing a pilot to use their knowledge to the fullest ability, which for low-cost airlines, they don't do that. Because low-cost airlines are more simple point-to-point operations with very limited connections. Some of them do, very few. Okay, that's what you tell a major airline. What are you gonna tell a low-cost airline? You will tell them, I wanted these 3 things to come separately, but that's okay. You will tell them that you are connected. You could talk to them about their financial strength first, that's okay. But let's stick with the mission initially. Getting people to travel who could not before. Ryanair has changed the world in Western Europe, and Wizz Air has done so in Eastern Europe. Before Ryanair, and EasyJet for that matter, there were a whole lot of people who never traveled, or very little, by plane to go over the continent, or to go, for instance, and get some sunshine when they lived in Ireland or in the UK. After Ryanair and EasyJet, lots of people started to travel to Spain, to France, to Italy, and many of them had second homes, and many of them moved as well. It changed their lives. They could go and travel with the family. Then after that, business people were able also to travel without having to go through a big hub. Okay? So this mission, you could say that you like this mission of allowing people to travel that could not before. That's something that speaks to you. Then you can talk about their financial strength. And finally, they can bring something that major airlines can to a point, but that some low-cost airlines like Ryanair bring brilliantly. It's work-life balance. Remember, I told you these three things that people stay for, and the third one is the flexibility. Well, Ryanair with their 5-3, 5-4 pattern, it's a wonderful way for you to be able to make your personal life work alongside your work life. Me personally, that's not how I imagined my life, but I've been writing into some people today on Discord that in my case, I wanted to be a major airline pilot. I was one, and I also paid the price of being constantly moved, having rosters that were not stable. Well, although in both my airlines, the rosters were stable, but I could not make some holidays. I wasn't here for Christmas, and it was very difficult on my family. If you work for a low-cost airline, you could have work-life balance, and that's something you can say. Okay? I'm only telling you what you can say and what you should say. And you see that in both cases, we love both airlines for different reasons. And the interview is all a matter of giving the right light and perspective to what you're saying and not putting yourself in a corner needlessly. Okay? Good. So I think now we're done with this. And so before we get into questions, I'd like to do the exercise debrief. And we're going to answer this question. So which challenges is your airline of choice facing at the moment? So now is the time where I'm going to look for my glasses and try and read your answers. Okay, let's go. Okay. Okay, I've got some questions that are not related to the topic. That's okay. We will deal with it afterwards. Okay, so I'm assuming, so you need to give me the airline. Yeah, so the delay of 737 delivery, that's good. So delay of 737 delivery, what does that fall under? Financials, product, employee? You see, that's both a financial, because they can't grow, so the turnover they planned for, they're not getting. And it's a product issue as well, because there's some routes that don't launch and some airplanes that are not coming. Luxair, together with Condor, have recently challenged the Lufthansa-ITA merger, and I could talk about that. The deliveries of Boeing and change of fleet to a new plane in Embraer is another challenge. Okay, good. So this is related to the challenging the Lufthansa-ITA merger. That's good. This has more to do with financials and corporate, I would say. And the deliveries of Boeing and change of fleet is, yeah, that's good as well. Ryanair, airspace closures in Ukraine and Israel. Okay, so I am not so sure that Ryanair is massively impacted by that, because they don't travel this far. And Ukraine, of course, but is at the border of Europe, but I'm not sure that's the bulk of their network is there, and I'm not sure they ever went to Tel Aviv. Maybe they have, because it's possible on a 737. Correct me if I'm wrong, okay, on this one. Issues in aircraft deliveries. Oh, they used to fly to Kiev. Okay, but it's like 2 destinations out of 200, right? So issues with aircraft deliveries, airspace closures. You'll find that in the Ryanair report, Michael O'Leary talks quite well and he's quite harsh, but he's quite right about ATC delays. And he's had enough of ATC professionals. It's no criticism of them directly, but the fact that the way they're organized, that many of them don't work at weekends because unions protect that, and as a result, there are lots of delays at weekends. He's criticizing the ancestral organization of the ATC units that don't move fast enough to sustain aviation growth. Okay, there's lots of things that he explains in the annual report that you could talk about, which would be great to mention at an interview, honestly, if you're being asked. I mean, this is fantastic. Someone who knows this just instantly scores, and if on top of that they communicate well, then the rest becomes much less important, because they've made such a striking impression. I'm not saying it's not important. Everything is important. One thing we'll discuss during the communication masterclass is that if you really communicate really well, it's big, even if your content is not fantastic in terms of your answer, so long they're not shocking, someone who communicates really well, it's very difficult not to recruit them. Yeah, there's something like you get attracted to them. It's like when you see someone who, a motivational speaker, the way they speak, you may not agree with what they say, but to some extent it becomes secondary. You get attracted by the way they say it. Okay, good. So all of you have worked quite hard. I tried to include some of the financials I had prepared at my last HR interview, but talking about the company mission and sustainability was more interesting to them ultimately. It was a pass. Well done. So I guess you're here because you're going for the next level airline. Excellent. My airline of choice is currently on a financial recovery path and has been quite successful with it lately, but new challenges have risen as global political and economical uncertainties, opening of new routes, order delays, spare parts shortages. Good, you know your stuff. That's it. Now you'll be able, this is going live on YouTube, so you'll be able to look at it again. Just use the 4 pillars to organize your thoughts. That way, if at the interview you have a time when you have a bit less energy or you're struggling to organize your thoughts, you can go back to this structure, okay? Complex challenges faced by aviation regulation. Yeah, you guys are good. Riyadh Air, launching operations by the end of 2025. Boeing deliveries delay, concerns about Boeing reliability, recruitment. Yeah, if you go for an Emirates interview, I'll go face on. If you're going for an Emirates interview, for instance, you look at the annual report and it seems like everything's perfect. Okay, well, of course it's not. So you should know this if you speak to some Emirates pilots, and you talk to me right now. And it's going to be the same for Qatar, it's going to be the same for Riyadh Air, it's going to be the same for Etihad, and to some extent it's going to be the same for any airline that hires a lot of expatriates. Their challenge, so talk about financials, no, not so much of a challenge, product and employee. That's where they're going to have the problem. How can you, so managing growth, that's the problem on the product, is how do you bring in 100 airplanes to an airport that was designed for the present number of airplanes? How do you do this with airport-wise, airspace-wise, logistics-wise, okay? It's a huge challenge, which Emirates, my time there, I mean, it was just impressive how they've managed to grow an airport that's almost midtown so well with the plans that they had, introducing this huge number of 380s, which require the infrastructure to really be thought very well. It was impressive, okay? Nevertheless, it was a challenge. That's a product. The next challenge here is the employee. Retaining the employee. You remember when I told you how difficult it was to retain employees who are not pilots or crew? Well, now if you have expatriates, it's difficult to retain even pilots. Because when you expatriate yourself several hours away, us Europeans going to the Middle East, 6 hours away. But we had lots of Americans when I was at Emirates who were they were like literally 10 to 12 hours away for phone calls and stuff, and like 14, 15, 16 hours away of travel from their family. How do you retain these people on the long term? That's a challenge. At some point, Emirates was hiring 700 pilots a year, and I think 4,000 cabin crew, to give you an idea, because the cabin crew would tend to change. To many of them would not stay more than 3 years. Okay, so that's a challenge you can talk about, retaining the employee. And you say, oh no, we don't have problems retaining the employee. Say, well, we know that some people, it's not because you're not a good company, it's because for people sometimes things happen in their life back home and they have to go back. We know a lot of people have to come back, which means for you that you need to constantly be replacing. You ask me for a challenge, that's a challenge. I'm not saying you're not doing well with it, I'm saying it's a challenge. Okay? The fact that you tell them about challenges doesn't mean that you're criticizing them. Okay? It's all about perspective. Yeah, so you did well, everybody. The Middle East and Ukraine are mentioned quite often in the Ryanair. Okay, Well, yeah, I think it's because, okay, good question. The Middle East and Ukraine are mentioned quite often in the Ryanair Financial Year 25 report. Would it still be wise to name, for instance, Israel, as it is mentioned a couple of times? I think I would stick with the fact that there is political unrest, there are geopolitical risks, and that times are very uncertain. It means that you cannot open destinations there, that some of them had to be closed because it's not safe to fly. Also, there's a pressure on fuel prices, which we have actually have seen in the last couple of days already. And if the geopolitical events create a crisis that gets out of control, of course, it will have an impact on people traveling. Okay, so you don't need to name Israel if you don't want to. Going to further interviews as Eurowings, which selected me, is taking too long to call candidates for type rating slots, group restructuring. Can you, I'm not going to say your name, but could you please re-explain this? So congratulations if you were selected there. It's taking too long to call candidates for type rating slots. I didn't quite understand the challenge that this was. Okay, you can retype. And so I'm going to answer a question here from, okay, an unrelated question, because we have questions as well, yeah, from that are not necessarily for this. It's one on CVs and cover letters. I'm applying for the Luxair sponsorship program and I'm a 38-year-old. One of the things that are a problem is shortening my CV to fit on one page, especially that they want you to describe every break longer than 28 days. Okay. Okay, if they say that they want you to explain every break longer than 28 days, that's a first. That's an interesting one. Every break longer than 28 days since when? The rule is that you want a one-page CV just to give the recruiter an easy, to give them an easy time to understand you, okay? Now, if they're asking you everything more than 28 days, well, then what I would do is I would have a one-page CV and then I would have appendixes. That's what I would do. Because you still want to be synthetic. You still want to show that you're synthetic, but they're asking you to be detailed. Well, then be detailed as well as an appendix. And I would put the CV, one page, and I would write somewhere every experience of more than 28, with an asterisk, every experience of more than 28 days was put in the appendix. That would look great, I think. I would like that if I was a recruiter. I will have a board interview with Sun Express. Can I prepare it with you? I already passed the sim. Yes, of course. And I will explain in a minute how you can do that. Basically, there are no, our friend there is explaining what was meant before. There are no TRIs, TRIs available and no simulators for courses. And that was for Eurowings. Okay, so if you are things like this, you could say because of the growth, and that's the case for Air France, because of how many people they've taken in, there's a lot of pressure on their training department at the moment. This is true. Okay, Air France at some point they were missing 2 A320 simulators that they removed from their hangars to put some 220s. And all of a sudden, they had they hired 500 or 600 new pilots. That was 3 years ago, and so they had to send them at other A320 facilities, and then they also had a lot of people who had left, so that the remaining TRIs had to train TRIs. The TRIs were training captains to become TRIs and first officers to become captains. When this happens, it's very difficult for the training department. Okay, so you could say, because of the growth, we know there is a lot of pressure on the training department to get people on the line, to get people who are on the line into their next progression. It's very difficult for them. Okay, you could say that. That's an internal challenge. With growth come all of these problems. And airlines like Eurowings, if they don't have TRIs, it means that they are losing some of their pilots to Lufthansa, to Air France, to other airlines that people want to finish with, so to say. And then these people have left. And when airlines start to lose their instructors, they have very big problems. Because the people under may not have enough hours to be promoted. If you don't have X number of hours, you cannot become a captain. So if a lot of airlines will be in this position now that they've been hiring a lot for 3 years, they don't have people, the people that are that they have in the right seat don't have enough hours to become captains. So they can't promote the captains to instructors easily without removing them from the line. Regarding an airline group financials, for instance, IAG, for an airline belonging to the Iberia group, Iberia, is it convenient to look at the group numbers as a whole or just the individual airline? Good question. And the other one is how to consider a small cargo operator called Zimex in terms of preparation. Yeah. So Air France is part of Air France KLM, the Air France KLM group. British Airways is part of the IAG group. When you have the leading airline like this inside a group, this leading airline impacts everything inside the group. So there it's quite obvious. You will, at the interview, mention the results of the whole group, and you will also know the figures of, for instance, IAG, and you will appropriate that as being British Airways. And if needed, you will be able to document data for British Airways only. Typically, what I would do is I would use the figures for the whole group, and then, but I would know the airplanes for British Airways and the employees just for British Airways, for instance. Okay. If you were looking at Iberia only, then I would still know the figures for IAG, but then I would have to go and dig in the report, and it is in the IAG report. You can find information for just Iberia. If it's difficult to find and you don't find all the ratios and the debt you won't find, then you use that of IAGs. Okay. But you should know the airplanes, the fleet, how many pilots, how many crew. Okay. Now, Zimex, a small cargo operator. So if the airline is very small and no information is available, well, ask ChatGPT if he can find something for you. If not, the idea is never to go with with a generic letter. Okay, don't blast airlines with the same letter. Just don't do that. Just don't do that. As much as you can, do your research. And yeah, it takes time. It takes a lot of time. But this time, you know, in the Little Prince, it says, it's the time you spent on your rows that makes your rows valuable. Okay, so spend time on it and you'll see what grows. Now, in the case of Zimex, if it's a small cargo operator, talk about cargo operations, at least why you want to join cargo operations, why you like the idea of cargo. Okay. And when you are in the interview, if information is not available on the internet, they can't expect that you would guess it, for sure. Some airlines also are private and there's no data available. Okay. Okay. Right. So just give me a sec. We've got some disturbance here. Just a sec. Just a little bit of housekeeping to take place here. Okay, good. Okay, I think we're, oh yeah, I still have some. Wizz Air still granted about 20 planes due to the engine problems. Yeah, indeed. Thank you for your compliments. I appreciate that you enjoyed this masterclass. Any feedback about Riyadh Air selection process? No, I don't have much feedback. I was told it's very similar to Emirates, but then I don't know if it's true. I don't know if they do the online interview. I would look on with ChatGPT initially so that they can find things on the internet for you. And maybe you could send us a message on Discord so we open a channel for Riyadh Air because it's an important airline at the moment. Okay, now let me tell you how, if you want to join, how you can, because I know one of you had this question and many of you may have it who are not yet with us. So now that we finished our exercise, the next step is, you've probably seen this before, so you can flash this code and this will take you to a page that looks like the one on the right with, I think now we have 11 videos that tell you exactly how we go about helping pilots. Okay. And in a minute, I'll give you a link where you can also book a it's not a consultation, but after, what I ask you is, after you've seen this, if you want to speak with me or with one of the team, we'll give you a link to be able to do just that. If your selection's coming soon, if you need help soon, go there, look at the videos. At some point, there are various offers. Just take a look at everything and you'll be able to join. Just know as well that and I've been discussing this for a little while, we're about to start a price change. The date has now been set and I think we will be able to hold it now. It's 22nd of July. Prices will change. It's going to be a big price increase because we've added a lot to advanced interview course, in particular over the years, over the time that it's existed, 3 years typically. And now you've seen that we've got a team working for you and it's time for us to bring the product to where it should be. So if you would join advanced interview course or any course that contains it before the 22nd, you will be automatically ported with all the functionalities that are on the course and at the existing price, which is very interesting. Okay, good. I'm not going to labor that point too much. You will be receiving emails, but know that you will be making as good a deal as possible by joining now. Now, whoops, the PowerPoint. Okay, good. And the next thing, yeah, just to tell you, if you don't know of our products, Advanced Interview Course is our flagship product. And it's got 8 modules really, but there are bonus modules. That's why we've put 10 modules here. So it tells you about the recruiter in detail, how to do your research, an expansion of the module that we've done today with some case studies as well. There are 5 case studies and they're updated. And we've got lots of research sheets as well from various airlines and feedback from clients that have been documented and stored. It talks about mindset, a little bit about psychometrics, and this module is going to be replaced with an effective communication module, operational challenges, CRM concepts, group interview techniques, how to use a personality questionnaire, which will be administered to you. It's part of the course to get a personality questionnaire debriefed by our psychologist, or it could be with one of our HR specialists, or sometimes it is myself. And then interview management techniques and how to essentially give great answers to difficult interview questions. And this builds into a virtuous funnel that will lead the recruiter to want to hire you and to have no doubt that you're the person that they look for. You will see that we have main courses and part 1, part 2 courses. Don't get confused by that. Part 1, part 2 courses is we've developed a few courses for a few airlines where we either had a lot of knowledge or a lot of demand. So the first one we did was Air France and British Airways, low-cost Irish airline Wizz Air, and we have a Fly Dubai one that we just released, and we are actually going to email everybody tomorrow or the day after about it. Okay, so these are surface level courses, so to say. The main course is what really should have your focus, because with advanced interview course you can succeed all of them. The module we've done today on research is what is expanded with sheets done for you. All the work is done for you for these few airlines. So don't get distracted by that. And each airline like this has a pack attached to it that will have 2 or 3 courses on top of the part 1 and part 2 course, depending on the airline. Okay, so on main courses, we have advanced interview course, the CV and cover letter course, which honestly is not optional. It's optional, you can not buy it, but I would really not do that because it's so important. The sim preparation course, if you have a sim, it will really simplify your life. And I had a client, like I said lately, who said, well, even the sim preparation course, this should be taught at ATOs. And that's normal that he said that, because the sim assessment is very different from any other exercise that you've ever done, even at the MCC. What you have at the assessment is completely different. It's very short with no help and no autopilot, no auto throttle, no flight director. And then when you were at the MCC, you had all of that and you had 4 hours. So there's really a set technique to go about it. Then we had a course that I've not mentioned here that's called the Operational Procedures course, which is Rebecca's course, and I've co-developed some masterclasses with her there. She's brilliant. This course is fascinating. It teaches you more about the airline pilot role, talks about SOPs, the manuals we use, what we do every day, the risk zones, technical scenarios. It's a fantastic course. We're going to change the visual for next time on this one. And then we have the English proficiency course in case you have an FCL 055 exam, or if you still think in French, in Italian, in Spanish, in whatever language in your head before you speak English, you need this course. Okay, this is going to hold you back otherwise. Okay, now it's hardly a surprise because you've seen it last time already, but if you have questions about any of the different courses that we do and you don't quite know which one's right for you, you want to ask questions on your timing, you have a little something you need to discuss, feel free to book a slot with me. Just let me, that's it. Okay. If you're watching this on YouTube, a little bit delayed, this QR code is likely to be changed because I'm getting a lot of requests, so sometimes I can't accommodate them. In this case, we'll get you to see someone else first to see if it's just product questions. We can probably help you quite easily with just a few answers, but you'll meet someone in video. Anyway, someone will be here to talk to you. Otherwise, I have some spots, I think. Let me look at my calendar. I've got some spots. This week, I'm quite free. Next week, where are we? Next week, I'm free only on Friday. And then the weeks after are going to be quite free as well. You can come back on this because I think you can only book 2 or 3 weeks in advance. So keep this link in case you need to speak with me. What I'm asking you, if you come on this link, is be there 5 minutes before. So it's a 20-minute conversation, okay? Be there 5 minutes before. Make sure that you are in a nice place with preferably a landscape mode a computer or an iPad. If it's on an iPhone, that's okay. Just make sure it's stabilized so that we can really, and that you are not in a noisy environment, so we can focus on your case. All right, and that's it. This call can be done once for each person. If you're already a client, there's another process. So for this, you will go through either Discord or a consultation, depending on how deep your question is. Right. Well, I'm going to see if there's any other questions, but if there's not, I think this will conclude the evening. I'll give you the once again. Any questions? No, I think we're done. So since you don't have any other questions, I will close this webinar. I hope you enjoyed it. Oh, someone's saying, oh, I really enjoyed the operational procedures course. Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, Rebecca will be very pleased. Okay, thank you, everybody. And I'll see you soon on Instagram, on YouTube, in the course, on Discord. Bye-bye. Good night.